Pressure fades the moment clarity steps in, turning confusion into direction and hesitation into confidence. This audiobook dives into 10 powerful chapters that teach you how to read people instantly, decoding intentions, emotions, personality types, motivations, anxieties, intuition patterns, rapport signals, lies, mindsets, and connection-building clarity. Each chapter sharpens your awareness and strengthens your communication skills, so you can navigate anyone, anywhere with certainty. Subscribe to Audiobook every day to keep growing your mind daily with content that elevates your thinking, confidence, and understanding. Number 1. Decode intentions using subtle cues. Human behavior reveals more truth in silence than in speech, and the ability to decode intentions through subtle cues is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. People rarely say exactly what they mean. They hint, they imply, they soften their words, or they hide behind politeness, but their bodies, their tone, their pauses, and their smallest reactions tell the real story. Understanding these hidden details doesn't require special talent. It requires stillness, attention, and a willingness to observe without judgment. The more present you become, the more clearly people's intentions reveal themselves. Most individuals move through conversations distracted, focused on what to say next, or how they're being perceived. This distraction blinds them to the quiet information happening right in front of them. The mind becomes sharper the moment you stop trying to impress others and start paying attention to what they unconsciously reveal. This skill begins with learning to observe what others overlook. People broadcast their intentions through their eyes, posture, hands, breathing patterns, and even the rhythm of their speech. Someone who intends to persuade you often leans slightly forward, lowers their tone, and maintains predictable eye contact. Someone who intends to hide something often shows defensive micromovements, a shoulder inward, a slight lip press, a split-second hesitation before responding. Those who genuinely support you usually show relaxed, open body language, a calm face, and consistent warmth in their tone. These signals are subtle, but they are not random. They emerge from deep instinct and reveal a person's true emotional and psychological state. Decoding intentions becomes easier when you observe without rushing to interpret. People often make the mistake of assuming too quickly, believing they know the reason behind someone's behavior. This leads to misjudgment. The goal is not to jump to conclusions, but to notice patterns. One cue means little, but several cues pointing in the same direction reveal clarity. A person who avoids eye contact once might simply be tired, but a person who avoids it consistently while answering specific questions might be concealing discomfort or truth. A friend who interrupts you once might be excited, but a friend who interrupts repeatedly during sensitive topics may be showing a lack of respect or interest. Silence combined with tense shoulders, forced smiles, or subtle distancing tells far more than words ever will. To build this skill, focus on small, concrete signs that are easy to spot. Watch the eyes first. Eyes shift differently based on intention. A person thinking deeply often glances upward or away briefly. A person recalling something true does so naturally, but someone constructing a story often shows a different pattern. Over-controlled stillness, rapid blinking, or a delayed gaze before speaking. The eyes reveal whether someone's mind is relaxed or calculating. Next, observe the jaw and mouth. A tight jaw, pressed lips, or uneven breathing often signal suppressed emotion or inner tension. Someone who intends to deceive may over-smile or smile without Ginjan eye involvement. Someone who intends to criticize may slightly purse the lips before speaking. Someone who intends to support you may show relaxed facial muscles even during difficult topics. Hands are equally telling. People who feel threatened or uncertain often touch their neck, face, or hair, seeking reassurance. People who are confident in their intention show controlled, purposeful hand movements. People hiding something may fidget or conceal their hands. People who intend connection often gesture warmly and openly. These patterns appear consistently across cultures because they come from human instinct, not learned behavior. Tone of voice is another powerful indicator. A person's intention sits behind their words, shaping the energy that carries them. A supportive intention comes through with steadiness, softness, and sincerity. A manipulative intention often comes through with excessive enthusiasm or unnecessary emphasis, trying to sound more convincing than necessary. A defensive intention may appear through quick speech, rising tone, or abrupt changes in rhythm. Listening to tone teaches you more about the person's internal world than their actual vocabulary. Decoding intentions also requires awareness of shifts, what changes when certain topics appear. Notice how someone's energy rises or falls when you speak about goals, opportunities, or achievements. Supportive individuals brighten, they lean in, they encourage, and their posture becomes engaged. Envious or competitive individuals dim their expressions, hesitate, their tone grows flat, or they switch topics quickly. These small changes are powerful signals of the direction their thoughts take when you speak. To understand people instantly, you must also understand yourself. The clearer your internal state, the easier it becomes to notice external changes. When the mind is agitated, everything looks confusing. When the mind is calm, every movement becomes meaningful. Self-mastery sharpens perception. People trained in stoic patience often see what others miss because they have learned to observe without reacting emotionally. They pay attention to what is present instead of what they want to be true. Real-world practice is where this skill grows. Start by observing people during low-stakes interactions, cashiers, coworkers, neighbors, or strangers. Watch their micro-reactions during simple conversations. Notice how they respond when thanked. Notice their posture when someone interrupts them. Notice the subtle tension or ease during everyday exchanges. These moments train your mind to detect patterns quickly. Over time, your instincts sharpen, and you begin to sense intention long before words are spoken. In close relationships, subtle cues matter even more. A partner's slight withdrawal during a conversation might reveal hurt they haven't expressed. A friend's inconsistent enthusiasm might reveal hidden insecurity. A coworker's anxious energy might reveal pressure they don't know how to share. Understanding these cues doesn't mean assuming the worst. It means approaching every change with curiosity rather than criticism. The goal is not to expose people but to understand them more deeply. This skill empowers you in communication. When you sense hesitation, you know to slow down. When you sense discomfort, you know to ask clarifying questions with gentleness. When you sense insincerity, you know to protect your energy. When you sense genuine intention, you can strengthen your connection with confidence. Decoding intentions allows you to move through life with less confusion, less conflict, and far fewer misunderstandings. And as your perception sharpens, you begin to recognize an important truth. People reveal everything through subtle cues long before they ever speak. A person's intention shows in the first moment they see you, in their eyes, their posture, their breath, and their presence. The more attuned you become, the faster you understand who wishes you well, who needs guidance, and who carries unresolved conflicts of their own. Mastering this skill is not about judging others, but about seeing clearly. Clarity protects your peace. It helps you choose the right relationships, avoid unnecessary disappointment, and move through the world with wisdom instead of guesswork. Over time, this awareness becomes second nature. Conversations feel easier, connections deepen, boundaries strengthen. Situations that once confused you now make sense because you notice what others miss. Decoding intentions through subtle cues is a lifelong advantage. It sharpens intuition, strengthens communication, and brings a sense of calm confidence into every interaction. With consistent observation and a patient mind, you begin to understand people not through their words, but through the truth they reveal, unconsciously. This skill transforms the way you experience the world. It allows you to move with greater discernment, deeper empathy, and stronger clarity, one subtle cue at a time. Number 2. Read emotions through micro-expressions instantly. Human emotion surfaces in flashes so quick that most people never notice them. These tiny expressions appear before a person has time to control their face, revealing what they truly feel in the rawest form. Micro-expressions are the honest language of the human mind, and the ability to read them instantly allows you to understand someone far beyond the limits of spoken words. Emotions move faster than logic. They rush through the muscles of the face in less than a second. When you learn to see these brief signals, conversations become clearer, relationships become easier, and misunderstandings fade. The world becomes more understandable because people stop being puzzles and start becoming open books. To recognize microexpressions, you must train your eyes to slow down the moment instinct tells you something shifted. This doesn't require suspicion or pressure, it requires curiosity. The face reveals truth in the millisecond between emotion and self-control. A flash of anger softens into a polite smile. A flicker of sadness is replaced by a casual shrug. A spark of excitement is hidden behind composure. These aren't mistakes, they are emotional reflexes. Human beings cannot fully mask their feelings, because the body reacts before the mind decides how to present itself. This is why microexpressions offer such powerful insight. They are unfiltered, unedited, and entirely real. Start by observing the most common microexpressions, the ones tied to universal emotions. A genuine spark of happiness lifts the corners of the mouth but also activates the muscles around the eyes. The eyes narrow slightly, creating warmth that cannot be faked. When only the mouth smiles, the emotion lacks depth. A flash of fear tightens the eyelids, raises the eyebrows, and widens the eyes with instinctive alertness. Even if a person tries to recover quickly, the alarm shows before they can hide it. Anger appears in a tightening of the jaw, a narrowing of the eyes, or a sudden tension in the brow. Disgust reveals itself through a slight wrinkling of the nose or a brief lifting of the upper lip. Sadness shows in downward eye movement, a softening of the eyelids, or a subtle trembling in the lower lip. These movements are fast, but they are distinct once your eyes learn to catch them. Reading microexpressions is not about assigning judgment. It is about understanding what emotion flashed through the person's mind at that moment. You are not searching for lies or weaknesses. You are recognizing truths people often suppress because they don't know how to express them safely. A colleague might show a moment of frustration before responding calmly. A friend might show worry before reassuring you that everything is fine. A family member might show joy before pretending to stay neutral. These signals are not manipulative, they are human. When you learn to see them, you begin to navigate relationships with more patience and precision. To sharpen this skill, focus first on the eyes. They reveal emotion faster than any other part of the face. The eyes widen, tighten, soften, or narrow in direct response to emotional changes. A brief upward pull of the eyelids can signal surprise even when the rest of the face tries to stay neutral. A downward movement of the eyes can show regret or disappointment. A quick narrowing can reveal irritation even when the person keeps their voice steady. When someone is truly engaged, their eyes remain attentive and bright. When someone is mentally withdrawing, their gaze loses focus for a split second. These small changes are enough to understand what feeling just surfaced beneath the surface. Next, pay attention to the mouth. The mouth signals emotional shifts very clearly. A quick tightening reveals discomfort. A slight upward twitch on one side reflects amusement or skepticism. A sudden press of the lips often signals a thought the person doesn't want to express. A small downward pull of the corners reveals hurt or sadness that they're trying to hide. Even the speed of the smile matters. A slow building smile often comes from genuine warmth, while a rapid, forced smile may hide tension. Micro-expressions around the mouth reveal internal conflict that most people never voice. Just as important is the timing. Micro-expressions appear immediately after a trigger, whether that trigger is a word, a memory, an idea, or a question. If you mention something and notice a millisecond shift, pay attention to the emotional direction of that shift. That fleeting moment often reveals more than any explanation the person provides afterward. Emotions are reactive, not planned. Someone who hears praise might momentarily show relief before expressing gratitude. Someone who hears criticism might briefly show shock or embarrassment before responding calmly. Someone who hears an opportunity might flash excitement before trying to appear composed. These moments guide you to the truth beneath the response. Understanding micro-expressions also requires knowing when to step back. Not every emotional flash needs a reaction. The purpose is clarity, not confrontation. When you understand that someone felt a quick moment of worry, you don't need to demand explanations, you simply know to approach the conversation gently. When you see a flash of resentment, you don't need to accuse, you simply recognize that something deeper exists beneath the surface. When you sense a moment of joy, you can encourage it by offering space for the person to share. This awareness brings emotional intelligence into every interaction. Microexpressions also help in moments where someone is trying to hide stress. Many people carry heavy feelings while pretending they are fine because they fear burdening others. A subtle downward gaze, a slight tightening of the cheeks, or a faint quiver in the eyelids may reveal exhaustion that words conceal. Noticing these signs allows you to support them without forcing them to speak. It allows you to become a steady presence rather than a demanding one. In leadership, the ability to read microexpressions prevents misunderstandings. When you see anxiety flicker across someone's face, you know they need reassurance, not pressure. When you see confidence appear for a moment, you know they are ready for responsibility even if they tone down their excitement. When you see hesitation, you know they require clarity, not criticism. This skill builds trust because people feel understood even when they struggle to articulate their needs. In friendships and relationships, microexpressions reveal unspoken emotions that strengthen connection. The moment someone lights up when you walk in, even if they remain calm, reveals genuine care. The moment someone's expression dims when you mention a painful topic, shows where tenderness is needed. The moment someone's eyebrows lift slightly when you share an idea, shows interest they haven't yet verbalized. These moments allow relationships to grow deeper because you respond not only to words but to truth. This skill also protects you. When someone shows a quick flash of contempt, even if they follow it with politeness, it signals underlying disrespect. When someone displays a spark of anger when discussing boundaries, it reveals where future conflict may arise. When someone shows a moment of excitement at another's misfortune, it reveals character. These small signs guide you to choose wisely whom you allow into your inner world. Microexpressions are the quiet truth behind every interaction. They give you the ability to see beyond masks, understand beyond explanations, and connect beyond surface-level conversations. With practice, your perception sharpens. You notice what others overlook. You recognize emotion in its purest form. You begin to understand people instantly, not by guessing, but by observing the fleeting signals that reveal what their heart speaks before their mind interferes. This skill brings clarity, calm, and confidence into your daily life. It turns every interaction into an opportunity to understand others more deeply and to navigate the emotional world with strength and awareness. Microexpressions are the keys to human truth, and once you see them, you begin to understand people in a way that feels almost effortless. Number 3. Identify personality types within seconds. Every person carries a distinct pattern that reveals who they are, long before they consciously present themselves. Personality shows itself through rhythm, energy, choices, reactions, and the way someone occupies space. When you learn to recognize these patterns quickly, you begin to understand people with remarkable accuracy. This isn't about placing anyone in a rigid category or limiting who they can become. It's about noticing the natural tendencies that guide their behavior. The moment you walk into a room, you can sense who thrives on interaction, who prefers observation, who seeks control, who avoids conflict, and who moves with intentional calm. These impressions are not guesses. They are reflections of deeply rooted traits that express themselves in consistent ways. Identifying personality types within seconds begins by observing how someone enters a moment. Some individuals move with confident momentum, taking up space with ease, speaking clearly, and displaying expressive gestures. They often have extroverted traits, fueled by connection and external energy. Others step into a space quietly, scanning their surroundings before engaging. Their attention flows inward, and their energy remains reserved. They tend toward introversion, preferring observation over immediate involvement. These first moments reveal how someone naturally navigates the world. Energy levels are strong indicators as well. High-energy personalities often use quick movements, animated expressions, and lively conversations. They thrive on stimulation and respond rapidly to new ideas or opportunities. Low-energy personalities move steadily and calmly, processing information before acting. They value predictability and depth over fast-paced change. Neither approach is superior. Each simply reflects a different internal wiring that shapes how a person interacts with experiences. Communication style also reveals personality with clarity. Direct communicators express thoughts straightforwardly. They value clarity, efficiency, and honesty. Their tone is firm, their responses quick, and their confidence steady. Indirect communicators approach conversations with gentleness. They soften their words, speak with patience, and consider emotional impact before responding. They prioritize harmony and connection over bluntness. Understanding this difference prevents misinterpretation and builds smoother interactions. When you respond to someone based on their communication style, conversations feel more natural. Decision-making tendencies show another dimension of personality. Some people decide quickly, trusting their instincts without hesitation. Their choices reflect speed and confidence. Others prefer to evaluate possibilities, gather information, and reflect before committing. Their caution is not fear, it is precision. In the first few minutes of interaction, the rhythm of their responses reveals whether they lean toward decisive action or thoughtful planning. A person's relationship with control is equally telling. Some individuals express assertiveness naturally. They speak with authority, initiate conversations, and guide interactions. They take leadership roles without being asked. Others approach situations with flexibility. They adapt, support, and collaborate rather than lead. They don't seek dominance. They seek balance and cooperation. Watching how someone handles small decisions like choosing a seat, suggesting a plan, or reacting to uncertainty reveals how they relate to control. Emotional expression also plays a significant role. People who wear their emotions openly show quick reactions in their face, voice, and posture. Their internal world is visible without effort. Their joy is bright, their frustration noticeable, and their enthusiasm contagious. Others maintain consistent composure. Their emotions remain steady, even in moments of excitement or stress. This doesn't mean they feel less. It means they process internally. Recognizing this difference helps you interpret their responses accurately and avoid expecting emotional expression that doesn't align with their nature. Another sign comes through listening habits. Some personalities listen to understand, absorbing every detail before responding. They maintain thoughtful eye contact, nod gently, and wait for you to finish. Others listen to respond, engaging quickly and jumping in with ideas, questions, or reactions. This reflects their mental pace and attention focus. Neither approach is wrong. Both simply show how someone structures communication. Social behavior is equally revealing. Notice how someone interacts with a group. Do they gravitate toward the center of attention, guiding conversations and energizing the environment? This reflects an expressive, outgoing personality. Do they position themselves at the edges, comfortable observing before engaging? This reflects a reflective, measured personality. People naturally gravitate toward roles that align with their inner inclinations. Values appear in subtle ways as well. Pay attention to what someone emphasizes: results, relationships, efficiency, creativity, stability, excitement, or purpose. Even in a short conversation, the themes they highlight show what matters most to them. A person who speaks about goals displays an achievement-driven mind. Someone who focuses on harmony displays relationship-centered values. Someone who prioritizes order reflects a structured mindset. These insights emerge through the topics they choose and the emotions they attach to those topics. Another powerful indicator is how someone handles silence. Some personalities become uncomfortable and rush to fill the space. They need movement, conversation, or activity to feel aligned. Others embrace silence effortlessly, taking time to think, reflect, or simply exist in the moment. This alone offers a deep understanding of their internal rhythm. Personal boundaries also reveal personality. Some individuals set boundaries clearly and firmly. Their tone shows confidence, and their limits are easy to understand. They value independence and control over their environment. Others set boundaries softly, wanting to protect relationships while still asserting their needs. Their approach reflects empathy and consideration. Observing how someone responds to small boundary moments like interruptions or unexpected requests provides insight into their personal structure. Behavior under pressure shows perhaps the most truth. In moments of stress, some people take charge, focusing on solutions and acting immediately. Others pause, gather themselves, and analyze before moving. Some withdraw emotionally to protect their peace. Others become more expressive to release tension. These reactions reflect the deeper layers of personality that surface naturally when the mind has no time to mask itself. Recognizing these patterns within seconds is not about labeling people. It is about learning to interact with them in a way that builds connection and reduces conflict. When you sense someone needs time to process, you give them space. When you realize someone thrives on energy, you engage with enthusiasm. When you understand someone values precision, you communicate with detail. When you recognize someone prefers calm, you respond with steady presence. This awareness allows you to navigate relationships with intention rather than guesswork. The more you practice, the more you notice subtleties that bring clarity. You see the quiet confidence in the person who speaks little but observes everything. You notice the hidden worry in someone who uses humor to mask discomfort. You recognize the ambition in those who speak with goal-driven urgency. You sense the creativity in those who express ideas with imaginative detail. You detect the steadiness in individuals who move with calm certainty. All of these impressions surface quickly when your attention becomes sharp. Understanding personality types within seconds enhances every aspect of life. It protects you from unrealistic expectations, strengthens your communication, deepens your relationships, and allows you to approach each person with the appropriate tone and energy. When you see people as they truly are, not as you assume, they begin to feel understood. And when people feel understood, trust grows effortlessly. This awareness transforms your interactions into opportunities for insight and connection. You begin to navigate social environments with ease because you understand the map of human behavior. The ability to identify personality types is not a trick. It is a quiet skill that allows you to move through the world with clarity, respect, and confidence. Number 4. Understand motivations behind every reaction. Every reaction a person gives is shaped by something deeper than the moment in front of them. People respond from their inner world long before they respond to the situation itself. Their history, fears, hopes, beliefs, insecurities, values, and desires all combine into one driving force: motivation. When you learn to see the motivation behind a reaction, you stop taking things personally and start understanding people with clarity. Reactions that once felt confusing or harsh begin to make sense because you see the emotional engine moving them. This awareness gives you the power to stay calm, communicate wisely, and guide interactions without being pulled into unnecessary conflict. Human motivation often hides behind layers of behavior. Someone may appear irritated, but the real cause may be exhaustion or disappointment. Someone may laugh at the wrong moment, not from disrespect, but from nervousness. Someone may withdraw not because they dislike you, but because they fear vulnerability. People rarely express the true root of their reactions directly. Instead, they show you the surface emotion while the deeper motivation remains unspoken. Understanding this difference is the key to interpreting behavior accurately. Start by noticing the emotional frequency behind a reaction. A person who responds with sudden tension often acts from fear, even if the fear is subtle. Fear can come from the possibility of judgment, the threat of failure, the discomfort of uncertainty, or the memory of past hurt. When someone stiffens, hesitates, or becomes defensive, it often signals an underlying worry about losing control or being misunderstood. This doesn't make them difficult, it makes them human. When you recognize fear as the motivation, compassion replaces irritation. Some reactions are driven by pride. Pride shapes the tone, posture, and intensity of a person's response. When someone reacts strongly to correction, they may be protecting their self-image. When someone exaggerates their achievements, they may be seeking validation. When someone avoids admitting mistakes, they may fear appearing weak. Pride is not arrogance. It is a shield people use to protect the identity they work hard to maintain. Understanding this helps you respond without confrontation. Another common motivation is the desire for connection. People often react strongly when they feel overlooked, dismissed, or undervalued. A quick shift in tone may reflect a longing to be heard. A sudden drop in energy might signal hurt caused by feeling ignored. Someone who becomes talkative may be trying to create closeness. Someone who becomes quiet may be hoping you notice and ask how they are. The motivation here is simple. They want to matter. Recognizing this allows you to strengthen relationships instead of misreading their reactions as mood changes. For others, control or stability drives their behavior. These individuals react sharply when situations become unpredictable. Even a small change can trigger frustration because it disrupts the internal balance they rely on. Their strong reactions come not from anger, but from a need for order and clarity. Giving them structure, directness, or reassurance brings them back to peace. Once you see stability as their core motivation, their behavior becomes easier to interpret. There are also people who react from past wounds. Their present behavior is shaped by experiences that taught them to protect themselves. Someone who becomes distant after a small disagreement may have learned that conflict leads to abandonment. Someone who becomes overly agreeable may fear losing relationships if they speak their truth. Someone who becomes impatient may have been raised in environments where efficiency equated to safety. These reactions seem excessive until you understand what shaped them. Recognizing the presence of old wounds helps you move through interactions gently. Some reactions come from ambition or the desire for progress. These individuals respond quickly when something relates to their goals. They show urgency, intensity, and focus because they are motivated by achievement. When they react strongly to delays or inefficiency, it stems from their internal drive, not personal offense. Understanding this helps you communicate in a way that respects their momentum. In many situations, curiosity is the underlying motivation. Some people ask questions not to challenge you, but to understand better. Their reactions may seem analytical or skeptical, but the intention behind them is growth and knowledge. When you recognize curiosity, you stop interpreting their questions as resistance. Motivation also appears in the pace of someone's reaction. A fast, impulsive response often shows instinctive emotion. A slow, deliberate one reflects careful thought. Neither is wrong. Each simply reveals how the person processes the world. Someone who reacts quickly may be highly intuitive or easily triggered. Someone who reacts slowly may be analytical or cautious. Understanding the pace helps you adapt your communication to meet them where they are. To understand motivations, observe what changes when the topic shifts. A person may respond calmly to most conversations, but become energized when discussing their passions. This shows fulfillment as a driving force. Another person may become tense when speaking about responsibilities, reflecting pressure as their primary motivator. Someone else may soften when discussing family, revealing devotion. The emotional direction of their reactions points to what matters most. Pay attention to what someone protects. If they defend their time, their motivation is likely balance. If they defend their ideas, their motivation is expression. If they defend their relationships, their motivation is loyalty. People always protect what they value most, and their reactions give you clues about those values. Understanding motivations also requires noticing what triggers discomfort. A defensive reaction may come from feeling unprepared. A sarcastic comment may mask insecurity. A dismissive tone may hide inner conflict. A sudden silence may reflect overstimulation. These signals are not accidental. They reveal the internal battles a person carries quietly. When you learn to see what drives discomfort, you respond with intention rather than frustration. In conflict, motivations become even clearer. Someone who raises their voice may be seeking acknowledgement. Someone who withdraws may be preventing escalation. Someone who gets emotional may feel unheard. Someone who tries to control the situation may fear unpredictability. These reactions often have little to do with the immediate disagreement and everything to do with the emotional layers beneath it. Seeing this allows you to approach conflict with wisdom rather than impulsiveness. In relationships, understanding motivations leads to deeper connection. When you see that someone becomes distant because they fear disappointing others, you respond with reassurance. When you see that someone reacts intensely because they care deeply, you interpret their passion correctly. When you see that someone seeks your approval because they trust you, you appreciate the vulnerability behind their actions. Motivation is the key that transforms confusion into understanding. This skill also strengthens your self-awareness. When you begin to notice the motivations in others, you naturally start recognizing your own. You see why certain comments trigger you. You see why you withdraw in specific situations. You see why your reactions follow particular patterns. This awareness helps you take ownership of your inner world, becoming more centered and less reactive. Understanding motivations behind reactions softens your approach to the world. It brings patience, clarity, and emotional intelligence into every interaction. You no longer see behavior as random or personal. You see it as the natural expression of someone's internal landscape. This perspective frees you from unnecessary conflict, builds stronger relationships, and allows you to navigate life with resilience. The more you observe without judgment, the more you uncover the quiet reasons hidden beneath every word, gesture, and emotion. People become easier to read, easier to support, and easier to connect with, because you see who they are beneath the surface. And once you learn to understand motivations, you unlock the deepest form of human insight, awareness that allows you to respond not to the reaction, but to the heart behind it. Number 5. Spot hidden anxieties through body language. Hidden anxiety leaves fingerprints on the body long before it appears in words. People try to mask discomfort with polite gestures, forced smiles, or controlled tones. But the body leaks truth through tiny inconsistencies. When you learn how to notice these subtle signs, you begin to understand what someone is truly wrestling with beneath their surface presentation. This isn't about judging people or assuming the worst. It's about developing a deeper awareness of human tension, internal conflict, and unspoken pressure. Anxiety is rarely loud, but it is always expressive, and the body is its most honest messenger. Start by observing the small shifts people make when they're trying to hold themselves together. Their breathing may grow shallow as they attempt to maintain composure. Their shoulders might sit higher than normal, as if they're bracing for an unseen impact. Their hands may grip objects a little too tightly, or fidget with repetitive motions that make no logical sense, but provide temporary emotional release. These are not failures of self-control, they're survival instincts. When you recognize them, you gain insight into the emotional weight the person is carrying. Pay close attention to what someone does with their eyes. Anxious individuals often struggle to maintain steady eye contact, not because they're dishonest, but because direct engagement feels emotionally intense. They may dart their gaze around a room, blink more often, or fix their eyes on safe, neutral objects to regulate their internal discomfort. On the other hand, some people overcompensate by holding eye contact too firmly, almost rigidly, in an effort to appear confident. This tight, unblinking stare usually signals an internal battle rather than genuine self-assurance. Speech patterns reveal a great deal as well. When anxiety rises, the rhythm of someone's voice shifts. They may speak faster, as though trying to outrun their own unease. Their sentences might become shorter, choppier, or filled with unnecessary filler words, because their mind is juggling too many thoughts at once. Silence can also signal anxiety. Long pauses, delayed responses, or a noticeable struggle to express simple ideas often indicate that the person is filtering their emotions heavily before speaking. These vocal nuances offer a direct window into their mental load. Look at the mismatch between words and gestures. When someone says they're fine while their arms are crossed tightly, or they claim they're confident while their feet point toward the exit, their body is telling a different story. Hidden anxiety often emerges through these contradictions. The person may genuinely want to believe their own words, but their nervous system reacts faster than their intentions. This mismatch is one of the clearest indicators that deeper tension is present. Notice the micro movements that occur when people feel threatened by social pressure. They might adjust their clothing repeatedly, as if trying to make themselves feel more secure. Their jaw may tighten, revealing frustration or suppressed fear. Their legs might bounce in a rhythm that has nothing to do with excitement and everything to do with uneasy anticipation. Even subtle shifts in posture can reveal emotional vulnerability, leaning back as though creating distance, or leaning forward too aggressively in an attempt to control the situation. Hidden anxiety often manifests through protective gestures. People may shield their torso with their arms, hold objects close to their chest, or place bags and jackets between themselves and others. These barriers provide psychological safety. They aren't consciously created. They arise from a primal need to guard vulnerable emotions. When you see these small protective behaviors, it signals that the person feels exposed or insecure about something they haven't verbalized. Listen to the tension in their tone. Anxiety makes voices tighten, raising pitch or flattening expression. The person might sound overly polite, as if afraid to offend. They may hesitate before expressing opinions, fearing judgment or rejection. Their words can seem carefully measured, not because they're thoughtful, but because they're monitoring their own emotional reactions. The voice is often the bridge between thoughts and feelings, and anxiety affects it immediately, even when someone tries to hide it. Observe interruptions in natural movement. Smooth gestures indicate comfort. Abrupt or jerky movements point toward emotional turbulence. Someone may start a gesture and then stop midway, unsure whether expressing themselves physically might reveal too much. Their steps might become uneven when walking, or their hands may clench and release without a clear pattern. The loss of fluidity indicates that their mind is struggling to maintain control over their outward presentation. Watch how someone reacts to physical space. Anxious individuals tend to shrink themselves, pulling their limbs inward, minimizing their presence. They may sit on the edge of a seat rather than relaxing fully. They might physically distance themselves from others, creating space not out of preference, but out of a desire to feel less scrutinized. Conversely, some individuals move too close, seeking reassurance through proximity. Both extremes reveal emotional imbalance. Hidden anxiety also shows through abrupt changes in behavior. A person might go from being energetic to unusually quiet or from relaxed to tense without any obvious cause. These shifts are often triggered by internal thoughts, self-criticism, or memories that spike their stress levels. When someone's emotional state changes faster than the situation around them, it's a sign they're responding to something inside rather than anything happening externally. Focus on the tension around the mouth. People often try to hide anxiety by controlling their facial expressions, but the muscles around the lips betray them. A tight, thin smile usually signals discomfort rather than genuine happiness. Lips pressed firmly together indicates suppressed emotion. Slight trembling or rapid licking of the lips means the person is trying to soothe themselves. These details are easy to miss, but incredibly revealing once you train yourself to notice. Consider the way someone manages their hands. Hands are expressive and hard to control under stress. Anxious individuals may hide their hands completely, placing them in pockets or sitting on them to prevent nervous movements. Others may keep them overly still, holding them in stiff, unnatural positions. Some fidget with objects, pens, jewelry, sleeves, phone cases, not because they need to, but because the movement anchors them when their mind feels unstable. Look at how someone breathes. Shallow breaths, irregular breathing patterns, and frequent sighing indicate inner strain. When a person is trying to appear calm, they often forget to breathe naturally. This creates visible tension in their upper body. Once you attune yourself to breathing patterns, you can sense anxiety even when the person's face and words seem composed. You'll also notice subtle cues in how someone responds to noise or unexpected interruptions. Anxious individuals often flinch more easily or pause longer before returning to what they were doing. Their body remains alert, scanning for potential discomfort. This heightened sensitivity influences their movements, reactions, and general presence. Learning to read hidden anxiety gives you a deeper understanding of human vulnerability. It helps you approach people with more patience, empathy, and awareness. When you recognize these signals, you can respond with gentleness rather than frustration. You can offer reassurance without forcing conversation. You can adjust your communication style to create a safer emotional atmosphere. Over time, this skill enhances every relationship you have. You become someone who understands unspoken needs, someone who can support others without making them feel exposed, someone who notices the emotional truth behind the masks people wear. And the more you practice observing these signals, the more fluent you become in the language of human tension. Hidden anxiety stops being invisible, and people around you begin to feel understood in ways they rarely experience. This awareness isn't about confronting people or calling out their emotions. It's about creating space where they feel seen, without judgment. When you can spot the subtle signs of anxiety through body language, you gain the ability to interpret emotional undercurrents that most people overlook. And once you can understand what someone is feeling before they say a word, you start building connections that are grounded in genuine understanding, respect, and emotional clarity. Number 6. Strengthen intuition with observation drills. Intuition sharpens when you train your mind to notice what others overlook. Most people move through the world half-aware, catching only the loudest details while subtle information slips through the cracks. Building powerful intuition requires consistent observation drills that strengthen the connection between perception and insight. The more often you practice, the faster your brain learns to pick up patterns, emotional cues, and behavioral shifts without forcing effort. Intuition is not magic. It's refined awareness repeated so many times that it becomes automatic. Begin by slowing down your attention in everyday environments. When you enter a room, take a few seconds to absorb the layout, the objects present, and how people occupy the space. Pay attention to lighting, movement, and energy. This type of scanning builds a habit of noticing structure before focusing on individuals. The mind becomes more precise when it understands context first, because intuition thrives on recognizing how each detail fits into the bigger picture. Next, practice observing people without analyzing them immediately. Watch their posture, clothing choices, pace of movement, and how they interact with their surroundings. Let the information settle before drawing conclusions. This helps your intuition learn to gather clues without jumping to assumptions. A strong intuitive mind is patient. It collects before interpreting. When you train yourself to see deeply before forming opinions, your internal predictions improve dramatically. Try a simple but powerful drill. Whenever you meet someone new, silently note 3 things about them that stand out. Focus on tiny details, the way they hold their phone, how they position their shoulders, or the rhythm of their voice. These small observations become the foundation of intuitive accuracy. Over time, your mind begins tying these details to emotional states, personality traits, and behavioral patterns automatically. You stop guessing and start sensing. Engage in exercises that increase your awareness of micro shifts in behavior. Notice how someone's tone changes from sentence to sentence, or how their facial expression shifts when they switch topics. Pay attention to pauses, hesitations, or sudden bursts of energy. Each of these movements reveals something about their internal state, and training yourself to catch them strengthens your intuition in conversations. You become quicker at understanding moods, motivations, and unspoken concerns. Another drill involves observing group dynamics. When you watch people interact in a group setting, notice who speaks the most, who speaks the least, who dominates space, and who tries to blend in. Identify subtle displays of leadership or discomfort. Watch how people respond to jokes, compliments, or disagreements. Group observation teaches your intuition to track multiple signals at once, enhancing your ability to read social situations effortlessly. Practice environmental prediction. When you enter a store, cafe, or public area, try guessing which interactions are about to happen. Predict who will speak first, who seems restless, or who might leave soon. You're not trying to be right every time. Accuracy improves only through repeated attempts. What matters is training your intuition to anticipate behavior based on subtle cues. This turns observation into a dynamic skill rather than a passive habit. You can strengthen intuition through sensory drills as well. Notice the temperature of a room, the texture of objects you touch, the background sounds most people ignore. Sensory awareness opens channels in your mind that improve your ability to detect shifts in energy and emotion. Intuition grows when your senses are fully awake. When you learn to anchor yourself in sensory detail, your ability to interpret people and environments becomes sharper and more reliable. Practice listening drills that focus on tone instead of words. During conversations, shift your attention to rhythm, pacing, and emotional weight. Words often hide intentions, but tone exposes them. When you train your ear to hear emotional layers beneath the surface, your intuition becomes far more precise. You begin sensing insecurity, confidence, frustration, or enthusiasm long before it becomes obvious to others. Try the reverse assumption drill. When you notice something about a person, an expression, a gesture, a behavior, challenge your first assumption and create 2 alternative explanations. This expands your intuitive range by preventing premature conclusions. Intuition grows stronger when it has space to explore multiple possibilities rather than falling into a single mental pattern. This drill keeps your perception flexible and unbiased. Use memory anchoring drills to strengthen pattern recognition. Throughout the day, choose one person, one object, and 1 moment to mentally record in detail. Later, replay them in your mind and see how accurate your memory is. This exercise enhances your ability to notice what matters and strengthens the mental pathways that intuition relies on. When your mind becomes skilled at recalling tiny details, it becomes equally skilled at detecting them in real time. Engage in silence-based observation. Spend a few minutes each day observing without speaking, reacting, or internal commentary. Just watch. This builds a calm, focused presence that allows intuition to operate without noise from overthinking. Silence teaches you to sense emotional energy rather than mentally dissect it. Many intuitive insights arise only when your mind is quiet enough to receive them. Use emotional mapping drills to understand the connection between physical expression and internal feeling. Study how people smile when they're tired versus when they're genuinely joyful. Look at how stress shapes body language differently than curiosity. Watch how someone's movements shift depending on who they're speaking to. When you practice mapping emotions to physical cues, your intuition becomes exceptionally accurate in reading the emotional truth behind someone's behavior. Strengthen your observational intuition by practicing timing awareness. Pay attention to when someone chooses to speak, when they choose to stay silent, when they avoid eye contact, or when they interrupt. Timing reveals intention. People rarely choose moments randomly. Learning to detect the emotional timing behind behavior gives your intuition access to deeper layers of understanding that most people never notice. Challenge yourself with speed awareness drills. Spend short bursts of time, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, observing a scene or interaction, and then summarize everything you noticed. This trains your mind to gather large amounts of information quickly, almost instantly. The more you practice, the faster your intuition processes signals. This is the kind of skill that feels like reading people instantly, but it's nothing more than disciplined observation executed at high speed. You can also refine intuition by observing absence, not just presence. Notice what people avoid saying, who they avoid looking at, or what they refuse to touch. Pay attention to the silence after certain questions or the moments when energy drops sharply. Intuition becomes powerful when it recognizes what isn't there. The missing emotion, the avoided truth, the suppressed reaction. Sometimes the strongest signal is the one that never appears. Over time, these drills create a mental environment where you absorb information naturally. You won't have to force awareness because your mind will learn to operate with heightened sensitivity. Your intuition will begin pulling patterns from minimal cues, connecting emotions to behaviors, and detecting meaning behind subtle shifts the moment they occur. People will sense that you understand them more deeply than they can articulate, and your presence will feel grounding, calm, and perceptive. Intuition isn't something you wait for. It's something you build with consistent practice, patient attention, and deliberate observation. Every drill strengthens the pathways that allow you to understand people effortlessly. The more you train, the more attuned you become to human behavior, emotional nuances, and unspoken signals. With time, your intuition transforms into a reliable guide that helps you navigate conversations, relationships, and decisions with clarity and confidence. Number 7. Master rapport by mirroring communication. Rapport grows from the feeling that someone truly understands you, not through force but through subtle alignment. When two people communicate in a way that reflects familiarity, trust forms quickly and naturally. Mirroring communication is one of the simplest yet most powerful tools for creating that sense of connection. It isn't about copying someone or pretending to be like them. It's about harmonizing with their emotional rhythm so they feel acknowledged, respected, and safe to express themselves fully. When you mirror someone effectively, their guard drops because their brain interprets you as a non-threatening presence who speaks the same inner language. Begin by tuning into the pace of the person in front of you. Every individual carries a natural tempo. Some speak quickly with bursts of energy, while others take their time, choosing each word with care. When you adjust your own pace to gently match theirs, they experience a sense of ease. It feels like the conversation finally flows in the way their mind prefers. This alignment creates comfort without you uttering any special phrase. People trust what feels familiar, and pace is one of the first signals the brain uses to decide whether someone is approachable. Matching tone is another powerful layer of mirroring. Tone carries emotional information long before words provide meaning. When someone speaks softly, with a calming tone, responding at a similar volume shows you're tuned into their emotional atmosphere. When someone expresses excitement with an uplifted voice, mirroring a lighter tone helps them feel their enthusiasm is shared. This isn't about imitation, it's about resonance. You send the message, "I understand the emotional space you're in, and I'm willing to meet you there." This emotional synchrony builds rapport faster than direct agreement or compliments. Pay attention to body posture as well. People reveal their comfort level through how they position themselves in a conversation. Someone relaxed might lean back with open shoulders. Someone focused might sit forward with minimal movement. Someone cautious might close their posture slightly. Without mimicking, you can shift your posture in a direction that aligns with theirs. When their body language changes, adjust subtly. This synchrony creates a wordless partnership in the space you share. Human beings are wired to connect through physical cues, and posture alignment taps into that instinct. Mirroring gestures can deepen this effect when done thoughtfully. If someone uses their hands when explaining something, allow your gestures to become a bit more expressive. If they keep their hands still, reduce your own movements. These small adjustments help them feel you're operating in the same behavioral system. The key is subtlety. The moment mirroring feels exaggerated or forced, rapport breaks. Natural alignment always feels smooth, never theatrical. The purpose is connection, not performance. Listening habits should also be mirrored. Some people pause frequently, thinking aloud as they process ideas. Others respond immediately, layering one thought on top of another. When you match their rhythm of listening and responding, they sense compatibility. It feels like both minds are moving at a similar speed. This is one of the most empowering forms of rapport because it shows you're adapting to their cognitive style rather than forcing your own. Language patterns are another powerful doorway into connection. People have preferred ways of describing experiences. Some focus on visuals, others on emotions, others on actions or logic. When someone says, "I see what you mean," they're thinking visually. If they say, "I feel like that makes sense," they're processing emotionally. If they say, "That works for me," they're thinking in terms of practicality. When you naturally use similar phrasing, you communicate in the mode they understand best. This kind of linguistic mirroring feels intuitive and comfortable to them. Even breathing patterns influence rapport. When you sit across from someone during a calm conversation, notice their breathing pace. Matching the rhythm, without exaggeration, creates a subtle sense of unity. In tense situations, slower breathing can help guide the other person toward calmness. Mirroring isn't only about following, it's also about leading gently toward a more grounded emotional state. To master rapport, avoid imposing your own communication style. Instead, observe first. Let the other person reveal their tempo, tone, gestures, and language. Most people rush into conversations wanting to express themselves immediately. When you take the time to understand first, you gain the ability to communicate in a way that feels natural to the other person. This skill reduces conflict because people feel seen rather than challenged. It transforms conversations from transactional exchanges into meaningful interactions. A strong technique involves matching emotional temperature. Every conversation carries a temperature: warm, cool, neutral, excited, or tense. When someone is sharing something painful, staying gentle and grounded shows respect for their vulnerability. When they're celebrating a success, responding with proportional enthusiasm validates their joy. Emotional mirroring demonstrates emotional intelligence and teaches the other person that you're capable of joining their world without judgment or resistance. A deeper layer of mirroring occurs through intention. People pick up on the energy behind your words even more than the words themselves. If your intention is to understand rather than impress, they feel it. If your goal is to support rather than dominate the conversation, rapport strengthens. Mirroring intention means aligning your emotional presence with the significance of their message. When someone is serious, be sincere. When someone is casual, relax your approach. When someone is reflective, slow the conversation and give space. Intention creates harmony far more powerfully than technique alone. Mastering rapport also requires sensitivity to boundaries. Mirroring should never cross into manipulation or forced closeness. You're not shaping someone's behavior for personal gain. You're building mutual understanding. Respect their comfort zone. Some people prefer direct communication, while others need gentle transitions. Some want eye contact while others avoid it. The aim is connection, not pressure. One of the best ways to practice rapport mirroring is through short, everyday interactions. Notice how a cashier speaks to you. Follow their tempo. Watch how a friend gestures during a story. Match their expressiveness. Observe the mood of a coworker and align your tone. These small adjustments become a natural part of your behavior the more you practice. With repetition, your intuition begins mirroring subconsciously, allowing you to connect effortlessly with anyone you meet. Rapport also deepens through emotional validation. When someone expresses frustration, acknowledging their feelings strengthens the bond between you. When someone shares hope, recognizing their aspiration builds trust. Mirroring emotions doesn't mean agreeing. It means understanding the emotional state behind the message. People open up to those who make them feel emotionally safe, and mirroring is a powerful way to create that safety. Rapport becomes strongest when you mirror authenticity. You're not pretending to be like them. You're genuinely aligning your communication style because you want the connection to feel smooth and supportive. When your intention is sincere, mirroring feels effortless. People sense authenticity more sharply than any technique. What matters most is the presence you bring into the interaction, the calm, grounded, attuned presence that says, "I'm here to understand you." Over time, this skill transforms your relationships. Conversations become smoother, conflicts dissolve faster. People seek your company because they feel reassured around you. Trust forms naturally, without pressure. Mirroring communication shapes you into someone who can blend with a wide range of personalities without losing your own identity. It teaches you how to respect the rhythm of another person's inner world while staying balanced in your own. By mastering rapport through mirroring, you learn to meet people where they are. You learn to communicate in a way that dissolves barriers and invites connection. You create bridges instead of walls. You turn interactions into meaningful exchanges that leave both sides feeling lighter, calmer, and more grounded. And in doing so, you cultivate a rare presence, one that people instinctively trust, because it feels aligned, attentive, and deeply human. Number 8. Uncover lies using pattern deviations. Every person expresses truth and deception through patterns, not isolated moments. The key to uncovering lies is never to focus on a single gesture or a single phrase. It is to understand how someone normally speaks, moves, and reacts. Then notice when something disrupts that rhythm. Human behavior is built on consistency. When someone lies, the mind experiences a small internal disturbance, and that disturbance leaks into their communication. These leaks are subtle and easy to miss when you're not paying attention, but once you understand how to look for deviations, you begin to notice them everywhere. The truth keeps people relaxed and steady. Lies create friction that disrupts the flow. Start by establishing a person's baseline. A baseline is their natural behavioral pattern when they are calm, unpressured, and speaking about topics that don't threaten them emotionally. Pay attention to how they ordinarily make eye contact, how they gesture, how quickly they speak, and how their voice carries emotion. Notice whether they pause often or rarely. Observe their usual level of detail and how confidently they share it. Every person's baseline is unique, which is why generic lie signs fail. You cannot interpret a behavior as suspicious without knowing what is normal for the person. The deviation is where meaning lies. Once the baseline is clear, pay attention to shifts. An abrupt change in rhythm, tone, or movement often signals mental strain. For example, someone who normally answers quickly might slow down when speaking dishonestly. Someone who usually speaks slowly might suddenly rush through a statement. These changes are not proof, but they are signals. The mind tries to maintain the story, and the body struggles to stay aligned with it. These mismatches reveal where to look deeper. Language patterns reveal deviations that are often invisible to the untrained ear. People speaking truthfully tend to recount events in a natural sequence, using consistent tense, stable pronouns, and concrete details. When someone fabricates, their language often becomes distorted. They may overuse vague phrases to avoid committing to specifics. They may distance themselves from the story by removing personal pronouns. They might shift from past tense to present tense unexpectedly. A liar's words often sound constructed, while truthful speech flows with less effort. You don't hunt for strange sentences, you listen for breaks in their normal language rhythm. Emotional alignment is another powerful indicator. When someone tells the truth, their emotions usually match their story. If they talk about something sad but show no sadness, or discuss something exciting with a flat tone, the mismatch can reveal that the emotional experience is not genuine. Conversely, false emotion often appears exaggerated. True feelings are usually subtle. Fake feelings tend to be loud. Again, it's the deviation from their typical emotional expression that matters more than any cultural stereotype. Watch for changes in facial behavior. A person's face reveals small bursts of emotion that appear before the mind can suppress them. When someone lies, they often display brief flashes of discomfort, tension, or guilt before their controlled expression returns. Notice sudden tightening around the mouth, brief eyebrow contractions, or a micro frown that doesn't fit the words being spoken. These micro signals last fractions of a second, but they stand out because they do not match the overall message. The truth and the lie battle in the face, and the truth often slips through first. Behavioral contradictions often expose deception faster than any single gesture. For instance, someone might verbally agree, but subtly shake their head in disagreement. Someone may say they're confident while fidgeting nervously. These contradictions are signs the mind is trying to send two messages at once, the spoken one and the internal one. When the body's message differs from the verbal message, the body usually holds the truth. Pair contradictions with deviations from baseline, and the pattern becomes clearer. Another key area is timing. Truthful people respond at a pace that matches their memory. When someone recalls an event they experienced, they often answer immediately or take a short natural pause to remember. A liar may pause unnaturally long as they construct details. Others may answer too quickly, rushing to appear credible. Timing becomes suspicious when it doesn't match the difficulty of the question or the person's usual response tempo. Even small timing irregularities offer insight into internal tension. Look for unnecessary defensiveness. When someone lies, they often experience a sense of threat, even when the question is neutral. That tension may cause them to over-explain, add irrelevant information, or shift blame. They might redirect the conversation or become irritated quickly. Excessive defensiveness is a pattern deviation, because calm truth rarely needs protection. The mind becomes guarded, not because of the question itself, but because of the internal discomfort attached to the lie. Changes in physical behavior can also reveal deception. People may suddenly hide their hands, fidget with objects, or adjust their clothing when they feel exposed. These aren't definitive signs. Many people fidget when anxious for unrelated reasons, but they matter when they appear only during certain topics. The context reveals the meaning. If someone remains relaxed throughout the conversation, but becomes restless only when a specific question is asked, that deviation is worth examining. Pay attention to their breathing. Breathing patterns often shift instantly when someone feels pressure. A person may suddenly take shorter breaths, hold their breath briefly, or breathe more deeply than usual. These changes indicate an internal spike in stress. When aligned with other deviations, breathing can reveal exactly when the mind begins to struggle with maintaining the lie. The body reacts before the person plans their defense. Consistency over time is another powerful tool. Ask the same question in different ways, spaced apart throughout the conversation. Truth remains stable, lies fracture under variation. A dishonest person struggles to maintain the same details repeatedly because the story is manufactured, not nourishment. When someone is telling the truth, the core of their story stays the same even if the wording changes. Inconsistency across repeated explanations is one of the strongest deviations to watch for. The environment also plays a role in detecting deviations. Observe how someone behaves when they think nobody is paying attention, then compare it to how they act when they feel watched. People trying to hide something often shift dramatically when they believe they are being evaluated. Someone who appears overly composed may suddenly relax when the conversation moves away from a sensitive area. That relaxation itself reveals which topics generate internal conflict. A crucial aspect of detecting lies is recognizing when someone overcompensates. Liars often try too hard to appear honest. They may provide unnecessary details, maintain excessive eye contact, or use overly formal language. They may try to sound respectful or trustworthy in a way that feels slightly unnatural. Overperformance is a deviation from normal behavior. Truth doesn't need performance. Lies often depend on it. The goal is never to accuse people or assume the worst. The purpose of identifying deviations is to understand where tension exists, where someone is holding back, and where additional clarity is needed. It's about reading the mental friction behind the message. You're not hunting for dishonesty. You're observing the story behind the story. As you sharpen this skill, patterns become easier to notice. You begin to sense when something feels off, because you've trained yourself to observe the shifts. You learn to trust your perception because it's grounded in careful awareness, not assumptions. Detecting lies becomes less about suspicion and more about understanding human behavior. When you learn to read deviation, instead of relying on stereotypes, your ability to uncover honesty and dishonesty becomes precise, grounded, and deeply intuitive. Number 9. Predict actions through mindset mapping. Understanding how someone will behave before they act begins with decoding the structure of their thinking, rather than the surface of their words. Every person carries an internal map built from beliefs, fears, desires, and learned responses, and once you learn to read that map, their next steps become far more predictable. This script explores mindset mapping as a practical skill, turning abstract psychology into something you can feel, see, and apply in real time. It isn't about guessing, it's about noticing the mental pathways people follow and recognizing the patterns guiding their choices long before they express them externally. Start by observing how a person frames problems. People who think in possibilities tend to seek expansion, so their actions gravitate toward new experiences, opportunities, and risks that offer forward movement. Those who think in limitations move cautiously, preferring predictable routines. When you listen carefully to how someone explains decisions, whether they focus on what could go wrong or what could go right, you begin to see the direction their mind naturally leans. And once that direction becomes clear, the actions that follow become easier to anticipate. You're not reading their mind, you're tracing the mental route they're already walking. Mindset mapping grows even stronger when you pay attention to emotional triggers. Every individual has specific states that push them toward certain behaviors. Frustration might lead one person to withdraw while it drives another to aggressively solve the problem. Nervousness may cause one person to talk excessively while another becomes silent and analytical. Pay attention to what emotional states activate certain patterns, because those emotional cues are predictive engines. When you recognize the trigger, you recognize the likely response. This ability creates a powerful pause where you can guide the moment intentionally, instead of reacting blindly to it. The next layer of predicting actions comes from recognizing a person's core values. Values aren't expressed in motivational quotes, they're revealed in choices. A person who values security tends to choose stability, consistency, and reliability, even when a more exciting option appears. Someone who values autonomy gravitates toward decisions that protect independence. When you pay attention to what someone repeatedly prioritizes: comfort, growth, attention, control, peace, approval, you identify the internal compass that shapes nearly every move they make. Values act like gravity. Actions fall in their direction over and over again. Another powerful tool involves studying contradiction points. People often say one thing but consistently do another, and these deviations reveal the truth about their mindset. For example, someone who claims they don't care what people think, yet constantly seeks validation, is showing you their real priority. People who preach discipline but live impulsively are revealing what actually drives their behavior. These inconsistencies aren't flaws, they're windows. Once you identify the real underlying mindset rather than the stated one, predicting their actions becomes far more accurate. You're no longer responding to their words, but to the engine running behind them. A major part of mindset mapping is understanding a person's conflict style. Some people lean toward confrontation the moment their boundaries feel violated. Others avoid all conflict, even when it harms them. Some intellectualize problems, some emotionalize them, and some freeze altogether. When you observe how someone has handled previous challenges, whether they attacked, retreated, sought support, or tried to rationalize, you gain a guideline for how they'll handle future ones. People rarely invent new coping strategies on the spot. They return to familiar ones, even if those strategies don't serve them well. You can also predict actions by identifying dominant cognitive patterns, such as linear thinking, spiral thinking, reactive thinking, or strategic thinking. Linear thinkers move in straight lines. They identify steps and follow them sequentially. Spiral thinkers jump between ideas and emotions, circling the same issue multiple times before moving forward. Reactive thinkers respond to stimuli immediately, almost instinctively, while strategic thinkers calculate several moves ahead. Once you understand the structure of how someone processes information, their next step becomes less mysterious. You can forecast whether they will move fast or slow, react or plan, confront or retreat. Mindset mapping deepens when you observe the stories people tell about themselves. Humans build identities, and those identities dictate behavior more than pure logic ever will. Someone who believes they're the fixer will always step in to solve problems even when it exhausts them. Someone who identifies as the misunderstood one will often interpret neutral actions as personal attacks. Someone who thinks of themselves as the responsible one will take charge even when they don't want to. These self-stories become scripts they replay again and again. Knowing the character someone believes they are gives you insight into the role they feel compelled to perform next. Pay close attention to how people justify their choices. The reasoning they use reveals which mental biases they rely on most heavily. Some justify decisions through emotion, others through logic, others through social expectations, and some through convenience. Once you learn their justification pattern, you can anticipate the kind of decisions they'll make in future situations. People rarely change their decision-making formula. They simply apply it to new contexts. Predicting actions becomes simpler when you understand not only what people choose, but why they believe their choices make sense. Another subtle but powerful part of mindset mapping involves recognizing people's thresholds. Everyone has lines they won't cross, limits they can tolerate, and pressures that cause them to break. When you study someone's threshold for discomfort, uncertainty, responsibility, or emotional intensity, you can predict how they'll behave when pushed. Some shut down under pressure, others fight harder, and some shift responsibility to others. Thresholds reveal where a person stops acting from intention and starts acting from instinct, which makes their behavior especially predictable in high-stress moments. The more you analyze these layers, their language patterns, emotional triggers, values, contradictions, stories, conflict styles, cognitive patterns, justification methods, and thresholds, the clearer their mindset map becomes. And once you can see someone's map, you can forecast the paths they are most likely to take. Predicting actions isn't about guessing or controlling others, it's about understanding how human psychology inspires movement. Long-bore movement appears externally. With mindset mapping practiced consistently, the choices people make become far less surprising, and your ability to navigate relationships, negotiations, and conversations strengthens on every level. Number 10. Build deeper connections through clarity. Creating deeper connections begins with removing the fog that usually exists between people. The assumptions, the unspoken expectations, the misread signals, and the half-finished thoughts that get lost somewhere between intention and expression. Clarity is the bridge that allows two minds to meet without distortion. When you bring clarity into communication, you remove the emotional noise that makes people defensive, withdrawn, or confused. Instead of trying to impress, hide, or guess, you create a space where the other person feels understood without effort. That sense of being accurately seen is what draws people closer, often faster than they expect. Clarity doesn't mean bluntness or emotional harshness. It means speaking from a grounded place where your message lands cleanly. Most people speak in ways that reflect their anxieties rather than their truth. Their sentences are padded with uncertainty, softened with disclaimers, or tangled with emotional residues from past conversations. When you strip your message down to the essential intention, people can relax around you. They don't feel obligated to decode your tone or interpret hidden meanings. They can engage openly because nothing feels ambiguous or threatening. This level of communication becomes magnetic, and people naturally gravitate toward those who make interactions feel effortless. To build deeper connections through clarity, You first need to understand what you want to express. Many misunderstandings come from people talking before they've organized their own internal world. Clarity begins privately. When you know what you feel, why you feel it, and what outcome you're seeking, your message becomes steadier. Before speaking, pause long enough to gather your thoughts. Identify the emotion underneath your words so you don't communicate from confusion. This internal alignment allows your expression to be calm, coherent, and free of emotional static. People trust you more when your internal state and external message match. Another essential aspect of clarity is learning to ask precise questions. Vague questions create vague answers, and vague answers create emotional distance. When you ask specific, clean, curiosity-driven questions, people feel like you're genuinely trying to know them rather than fishing for information. Questions such as, "What made that important for you?" or "What did that moment feel like for you?" invite the other person to open doors they usually keep closed. Clarity in questions leads to clarity in connection, because it shows that you're not just listening, you're trying to understand the internal world behind their words. This depth of interest makes people reveal sides of themselves they rarely share. Clarity also involves giving people a stable emotional atmosphere. When your reactions are consistent, understandable, and not exaggerated, others learn that they can speak freely without worrying about unexpected backlash. Emotional stability is its own form of clarity. People connect more deeply with someone who offers steady energy. When you express your feelings clearly without dramatizing them, suppressing them, or projecting them onto others, you create safety. Safety is the foundation of closeness. The moment someone feels safe with you, their walls lower and their honesty increases. Through clarity, you grant them permission to be their unfiltered self. One subtle but powerful part of creating deeper connections is learning to express appreciation in a direct and sincere manner. Many people hesitate to compliment or acknowledge others because they fear sounding awkward or overly emotional. But when you articulate your appreciation with specificity, the impact is profound. Saying, "I value how you always think things through deeply," is more meaningful than vague praise. Specific appreciation shows that you actually pay attention. That attention builds trust. Trust builds warmth. Warmth encourages openness. And openness is the birthplace of strong, lasting connections. Clarity and appreciation strengthens bonds faster than grand gestures ever could. Another layer of clarity involves establishing boundaries in a way that feels respectful rather than confrontational. People often assume boundaries push others away, yet the opposite is true. Clear boundaries make you predictable, and predictability creates emotional security. When someone knows what you stand for, what you need, and what you won't tolerate, they learn how to engage with you respectfully. Connections break down when boundaries are unclear, because unclear lines create resentment, frustration, and misunderstandings. By communicating your boundaries calmly and consistently, you build relationships that grow without tension or confusion. Clarity becomes the structure that protects closeness. Listening with clarity is just as important as speaking with clarity. True listening is not silent waiting, it is deliberate understanding. When you listen, remove your inner commentary. Don't prepare responses while they speak. Don't filter their words through your insecurities. Let their message land first and respond after it has settled. When people feel truly heard, their guard dissolves. When they sense that you're absorbing their words rather than reacting to them, connection deepens instantly. This kind of listening requires emotional discipline, but it transforms every relationship it touches. Clarity in listening signals that the other person matters. Another piece of clarity building comes from recognizing when your energy is affecting the interaction. People often bring stress, irritation, or exhaustion into conversations without realizing it, and the other person absorbs that tension. When you notice your own state clearly, you prevent unconscious negativity from spilling into your connections. Saying, "My mind is a little overwhelmed right now, let me slow down for a moment," is far better than snapping or withdrawing without explanation. Self-awareness allows you to regulate your energy so it does not distort the dynamic. Clarity in self-management keeps the relationship atmosphere clean. To strengthen connections through clarity, be willing to articulate your intentions. Many interactions fail because both sides are operating on assumptions. Saying something like, "I want us to understand each other better," or "I'm asking this because I care, not because I'm judging," Remove uncertainty. Intentions settle emotional dust. When your intentions are transparent, people stop trying to guess your motive. Guessing breeds mistrust. Understanding fosters closeness. Clarity turns unclear dynamics into purposeful relationships, where both people move with awareness instead of confusion. Clarity also means simplifying your communication style, so it reflects presence rather than performance. People connect deeply when they feel you're speaking in real time, not reciting rehearsed lines. When your words come from authenticity rather than strategy, the emotional signal becomes pure. Others feel the difference instantly. Authentic clarity makes your presence grounding rather than overwhelming. It draws people in because it gives them space instead of pressure. The more natural and direct your communication becomes, the more intimacy can grow in the spaces between your sentences. Another vital element is recognizing when clarity requires courage. Sometimes the message you need to express is uncomfortable. Maybe you feel hurt, or uncertain, or undervalued. Avoiding the truth creates emotional distance, but speaking the truth with calmness creates connection. Honest clarity is not about making demands. It's about revealing your inner world in a way the other person can absorb. When someone sees your vulnerability expressed in a grounded, clear manner, they feel invited into a deeper emotional realm. This strengthens the bond far more than silence or avoidance ever could. Clarity becomes transformative when practiced consistently. Over time, the people around you stop bracing themselves for miscommunication. Conversations become smoother. Disagreements resolve faster. Connections deepen because the emotional pathway between you and others is free of debris. Every message lands in the place it was meant to land. Every interaction feels intentional. Every relationship becomes more emotionally breathable. Through clarity, you build connections that feel honest, steady, and deeply human. Connections where understanding isn't forced but flows naturally, creating bonds that grow stronger with every transparent moment.